Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. Today I've got a couple of stories to talk to. It's one of those weekend review sorts of things that I like to do every once in a while. There's a couple of really interesting stories that I wanted to discuss with you guys, all very relevant. The first is the one that's probably the most outdated. This news really started to become a story on the internet about a week or so ago, but I kind of felt like I was ready to talk about it. I, of course, had a couple of things, some personal things, keeping me busy last week as it was anyway, so I didn't have a chance to talk about it when it was more relevant. But I have to get this off of my chest. What I want to talk about in this first main story is what's happening with the release of Titanfall 2 and also of Battlefield 1, which we know are both EA developed and published games. DICE, of course, being the team that did Battlefield. They've done it, I think, since its inception, or at least the last several more relevant versions of that game. I admit I've only dabbled in Battlefield 3. That is the extent of experience that I have with that series, although I admit I'm actually very, very interested in Battlefield 1. But of course, the whole talk has been the relative successes of both games and whether or not they've been kind of cannibalizing each other's success because they're both released by the same company around the same time, within the same week or 2 weeks of each other, and also around other large high-profile shooters such as Gears of War 4 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. All of these games, all of these similar kind of, shooting, violent, mature-rated shooters coming out within the same couple of weeks of each other. It's very interesting. It's very unique. On one hand, I think it's actually really great because they all seem to be pretty awesome experiences. I have, of course, dabbled in Gears of War and Titanfall myself, and I will eventually plunk down on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. The fact that they're all coming out within the same period is certainly exciting because it's like, wow, all of these great games. This is so cool. But of course, is it too much to release all at one time? So because I purchased and have been playing Titanfall 2 since day one, you're of course watching some footage of the game right now. The reason I mostly wanted to discuss this is because I'm actually very disappointed in how this has all played out. I gotta tell you guys, straight up, Titanfall 2 is absolutely spectacular. It is better than I hoped and anticipated. I played the first game about a year after it was released. I did really enjoy it, but I could tell it wasn't quite what a lot of people wanted. It wasn't what I wanted. It didn't fully utilize and deliver on the whole concept. Although it was still fun and good for what it wasn't what I think a lot of us were hoping and kind of what it was promised. So coming into Titanfall 2, I was excited to see if EA could improve on what they were initially trying to do with that first game. Then, of course, at E3, they confirmed that a single-player campaign was being made for the game because people wanted that so badly. And as a single-player campaign guy, I got giddy. I was so excited. I was like, yes, thank you, EA. Thank you, huge, humongous, gigantic video game corporation, actually listening to people, the gamers and the fans, and delivering on something that we wanted and something that I wanted out of this next game. It took whatever hype and excitement I might have had for Titanfall 2 and just elevated it into the stratosphere. That was really, really great. Now that I've had it for whatever week or two that it's been out, I gotta tell you guys, it's even better than I thought. The campaign, the story and the context is ridiculous, and I don't even really care about that. But it's very substantial, it looks great, it plays great, it runs great, you do a lot of different things. It took me several hours, you go all over the place, you're jumping through time, you've got some really unique gameplay mechanics. As far as the actual content, it was great. I don't really care that the story was lame and I didn't give a crap about the main character. I just liked that there was a ton to do and it was a fun campaign to play through. That's what I wanted, and I got it. They delivered that. The multiplayer is also awesome. There was a lot of modes, a lot of weapons, a lot of Titans, and just tons of things to do. I could gush forever. So the reason this disappoints me is because, as you can tell, I freaking love Titanfall 2, and I think that this game deserves to be a big success. Battlefield 1, the other EA game that's kind of, chomping into what Titanfall 2 is doing, I do want to play, like I said, as somebody who hasn't really experienced much of the Battlefield franchise. I do like what they're doing with the World War I style. I hear the vignette way of telling the campaign story with a bunch of different soldiers and their life and death and little short stories, I think sounds very cool, especially with the backdrop of World War I. I know that it looks great. I hear the multiplayer is fantastic. I definitely want to try it. But I have to say, what the hell was EA thinking? It seems like Battlefield 1, obviously being the higher profile and more successful of the two games, is the one that's really eating into the sales of the game that I think is probably the better one, or at least the one that I'm loving right now, Titanfall 2. So I mean, can we blame EA for this or not? I guess kind of, yeah. And like I said, I'm kind of like EA, you boneheaded idiots. What were you thinking? I think that, yes, we can sort of look at this as maybe not a smart move. They've made a couple of public statements, EA has, about defending their decision and why it is what it is. I certainly fear for the future of Titanfall because they released a game that they should have known was going to be a bigger deal and higher profile right against it. I mean, literally the week before Titanfall 2 came out. And, the reviews are very strong for Titanfall 2. There are a lot of people who are saying it's around as good as I feel it is, or even saying it's as good as I think it is. It's definitely going to be a contender for my top 3 or 4 of the year. Probably, maybe. We'll see once I actually put that list and video together. But it's up there, man. I can guarantee you it's a lock for the top 10. It's really, really great. And I still acknowledge that Battlefield's a huge series, so I would have expected the game to perform better and review better, and for people to be more excited for it than a game like Titanfall 2. And again, not to mention the fact that Gears of War was just a couple of weeks prior. Awesome freaking game. Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, whether you love it or hate it, it's Call of Duty, man. It's a big deal. It's going to sell like crazy. People are going to pay attention to it. And Infinite Warfare is interesting because people are all over the place with that. But there are certainly a lot of people defending it and saying it actually is pretty darn good. So I find that encouraging. I just am really disappointed with the download and install size of that game. Makes me hella nervous. So I don't know when I'm going to decide to give into that and clear up a bunch of space on my Xbox One. Because I think I want to play that on Xbox One and not my PS4. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this because I wanted to get out to you guys how much I love Titanfall 2, and I wanted to be someone who can hopefully share an opinion that's minutely influential and let people know, hey, everyone's paying attention to Battlefield 2, or Battlefield 1, sorry, and Call of Duty and all these other things, and that's fine, but don't forget this game, Titanfall 2. It's excellent. I want a third game. I want them to continue doing what they're doing. They're kind of making this weird Call of Duty meets Halo kind of thing with these huge mech robots. It's both very familiar because it borrows from other games that we've played, and also really unique and fresh because of the story and the mechanics. And I want this game to get attention, and I'm really disappointed with how EA chose to release 2 of its biggest holiday games. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which I think most of the fans and followers of my channel are going to be interested in hearing me talk about, is of course today's release of the NES Mini. The one and only, the fabled, impossible to find, never going to pre-order NES Mini, which looks awesome, and I thought for so long I was going to pick one up, but when I started to realize how this was going to turn into a shit show as it was getting ready to launch, I was like, man, I ain't got time for that. I couldn't pre-order it, so I wasn't going to deal with all this other running around and waiting in lines and all that stuff. So that kind of brings me to really what I have to talk about when it comes to the NES Mini, and you probably know this. It has been a shit show. It's impossible to find these things. I have someone who works with me was one of my buddies. He was like, yeah, I'm going to try to get one tomorrow. He told me this yesterday, and he started texting me this morning. He's like, this is ridiculous. I've been to these stores and these stores and these stores. There's lines. No one has them. They've been swiped up immediately. Everyone's talking about it online and Twitter and Facebook. They're impossible to find. Nintendo, I don't know if Nintendo dropped the ball, or if they created false hype, or if they just were completely oblivious to what was going on after having revealed this thing several months ago. But they are, once again, the proud owners of this impossible to find thing that everyone needs. It was the Wii a couple of years ago, it was Amiibo 2 years ago, and now here we are again with the NES Mini, which I certainly thought was going to be the case when it was revealed. However, I thought for sure we were going to be able to eventually pre-order the damn thing. And nope, Nintendo decided against that, and I think it's because they purposefully did want to create this sort of false demand, and they are the kings at that, and it is a very smart business tactic, to be fair. I won't even entirely fault them, although it is very frustrating and kind of dumb for them to do such a thing. It's like they would have known how much money they could make and how many of these things that they could sell, so why not just make a bunch of them, make them reservable. Just you're going to make money because you're going to sell them. So it's not like you're losing money by making more NES Minis available for people to pick up and purchase in the first launch day and this launch weekend and all this stuff. But you know what? That's just not how Nintendo rolls. And like I said, I think to a degree it's smart, you guys. We have to admit it. They know how to get people talking about them and wanting their product. I think they saw it was successful with the Wii. They found a way to make it work also with Amiibo. So why not carry it on with this? It's another little kind of kitschy thing to get. It's not like it's a main product from Nintendo. It's not a new console. It's not a new game. It's just like a little collectible thing with a bunch of old games that most of us have played. So to be fair, I don't feel like they're as obligated to make this thing as readily available as something like a new game or a new console. I'm really nervous with how the Switch is going to play out, man. I am taking the day off for the reveal event so that I can go pre-order it as soon as it's done. Because like I said, I'm for sure that Nintendo is going to make those pre-orders available on January 12th. And I don't want to miss that opportunity. So, the NES Mini looks cool. I would really like to own one. Maybe if they become easy to find in the next, month or couple of months, I'll probably finally pick one up. I grew up on the NES, man, so of course I appreciate it. It's going to bring back a lot of awesome memories for me. I love the collection of games. I've talked about it many times. Beyond the obvious staples of the Zelda games and Metroid, I love that the Castlevania trilogy is on there. For some reason, that gets me super pumped. And yes, I know it's all available on the Virtual Console and stuff, but I don't want to go through the individual purchases and the downloading in the eShop. It's like, if I can pay a small price to just have this awesome NES unit that just has all these games ready to go, to me, that's the better value. That's the more interesting way for me to do things. So, I don't know, man. Nintendo, maybe they're just practicing for when the Switch comes out so that they can re-emulate the success they had with the supply and demand problems of the Wii. And so they're like, well, let's just do this one more time, get this little kitschy NES Mini out, make people freaking fight over each other in Walmarts and Targets across the world trying to get one. And everyone's going to be excited and talking about how hard it is to buy Nintendo products again, so that when we release the Switch in March, everyone's going to be doing the same thing again and poking each other's eyes out just to be the first one to get their hands on it. And in that respect, like I said, as frustrating and dumb as it all is from Nintendo, it's also admittedly kind of smart. And lastly, let's talk about the PlayStation 4 Pro, because, as we all know, the PlayStation 4 Pro did launch officially this week. And I got to tell you, it totally snuck up on me. If I didn't see a lot of fellow YouTubers and people who I follow on the site posting videos talking about it and unboxing it and saying, I got my PS4 Pro unboxing, check it out, I probably wouldn't have even realized or remembered that the thing came out already. I mean, it's such a weird, confusing scenario surrounding the PlayStation 4 Pro, from all the rumors and the mystery and the theories to the final reveal and how strange that was, to all of the questions about what this thing really does and what are the developers going to be doing with games and patches for PS4 Pro content, to now the launch. And it's like, oh, it's just kind of here. And, the Slim came out too, which I almost forgot about as well. And so now Sony has all these different models of the PlayStation 4 on the market. And, it's, to be fair, not the first time this stuff has happened before. But the Pro is interesting, man, because I wanted to believe that if we're going to start to step into this weird half-generation step forward in technology from Sony and Microsoft, which I have absolutely lambasted and lamented and complained about before. I think it's a horrible thing that's happening and a very bad trend. The fact that it's happening is interesting. And it's like, if you're going to do this, let's at least see you go all in. Let's see you make a real concerted effort and go all the way and actually upgrade your hardware. And it seems like the PlayStation 4 Pro isn't really doing that to me. And anyone who's more tech savvy can correct me if this is wrong, but to me, I think it seems like the PlayStation 4 is less about the actual power and the graphical ability of the console and more about the visual output, more about how 1080 it is, how HDR it is, what the frame rate is, and if it can run 4K and stuff like that. I think it's more about that than it is like, oh, we can make more polygons and we can improve the AI in games. And we can do and build things visually within the worlds of our games in a way that we couldn't with the base PlayStation 4 architecture, which, to be fair, I think is what the Scorpio is going to be doing. I think it's actually going to be a traditionally more powerful console than the Xbox One, allowing you to create better graphics and build better things within your games. And I don't think, maybe to a small degree, you can with the Pro, but I think it's really just about cleaning up the visuals and cleaning up the visual output so that it can run in 4K and HDR and stuff, which I get to a degree does certainly have some value and some merit. We're, kind of in the genesis of the next steps into the next visual, I don't even know what to call it, the next visual evolution as far as what we're seeing in our TVs and in our video and in our movies and stuff. So Sony's trying to take advantage of that. But it's like, if you're going to upgrade your PlayStation 4 console, to me, that doesn't seem like big enough of a step. I would, unfortunately, I hate that I even have to say this, I would rather it be something like what the PS4 or the Xbox One Scorpio is probably going to be. That, to me, seems like it's at least the fully committed idea of upgrading your current console than what the PlayStation 4 Pro is. And I find that disappointing, especially as someone who does like Sony, and I really enjoy my PlayStation 4. I would like to see that, they're doing smart things with it and making smart decisions, but I think that in the midst of losing ground to Microsoft, which they have have been the last many months in the last year. Maybe they were scrambling and they knew Microsoft was doing the 1S and then this other weird Scorpio thing next year. And they're like, oh, what do we do? Okay, well, 4K is a big deal. We make 4K TVs. Well, okay, here's a PlayStation 4K thing. And that's just what it is. And they just kind of, I think, sort of half-ass pooped this thing out, you know? And I mean, anyone out there who has one and has been using it this last week or so, tell me what you think about it. But I don't know that I see a whole lot of value to the thing. And it's not that I want it to be a failure. I think Sony's really just trying to make this thing slowly replace the available base PlayStation 4 model. You know, they basically said, we're going to have the PlayStation Slims and the PlayStation Pro. That's what's going to be available going forward. So I will give them this one credit. They haven't been truly billing this as a next console and a true upgrade and a next generation machine. They really just kind of put it out into the wild. They told us about it a couple of months ago. Then they're releasing it, and the base PlayStation 4s are going to go away, and this is what's going to be available for people to buy. So they're kind of just like eking it in there, and they're not making a huge push. And in that respect, I cut them a lot of slack because it doesn't feel as much of a shady business practice as if they were literally saying, it's the next thing, you got to have it, you got to abandon your old one, the old one's crap, it doesn't do the good stuff, you got to buy the new one, blah, blah, blah. They're not doing that. And so it's like, okay, as dumb as the whole PlayStation 4 Pro thing is, at least it's just like, and here you go, it's on shelves, enjoy, buy it if you want. So that, to me, kind of lessens the blow of the weirdness that is the PlayStation 4 Pro. So I don't know, man. There's a lot going on. I felt it was probably better to just put it all into one video. I like the occasional week in review, and as I've said many times, it seems like you guys really like it as well. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, man. I certainly hope Titanfall figures its stuff out. I hope gamers really keep keying into how excellent the game is and give it a shot. Pick it up and purchase it. The game can see a fair level of success and warrant the next game, because we all know EA would love to make a third Titanfall. And as a huge Titanfall 2 fan, I would love to play that game. The NES Mini is Nintendo at its best, finding ways to make us excited about things we've already had and played in the past. And the PlayStation 4 is just a big old confusing mess. The PlayStation 4 Pro, I mean. What the hell's going on there? So talk about all these stories and stuff below, guys. Tell me what you think about Titanfall, NES Mini, Electronic Arts, PlayStation 4 Pro, all this crazy shit. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.